I'm Quynh Rathkamp. My husband Dave and I founded and started Save the World Brewing in Marble Falls 4 years ago. We're about to start and celebrate our 4th anniversary. So we make some fabulous beers, award-winning, and right now I'm going to take you on a tour of our brewery. Starting with, we're in the tasting room, the foyer. You can see there's a lot of art here. So beer is made up of 4 traditional ingredients. There's the water, and really interestingly, the water in Marble Falls is very similar to the water in Belgium. So I think it's just meant to be that God put us here in Marble Falls. And so water, malt, which the major malt in beer is barley, but of course you can also have oat and wheat, rye, other kind of grains. There's hops. Hops are the sort of vegetative component. The leaf hops look like this. These are dried leaf hops. But we primarily use what are called pellet hops. They're the more efficient version of hops to use. And they provide the bitterness that balances the sweetness that comes out of brewing beer. Because nobody wants just a sweet beer. You want a balanced beer. And then finally, a very important component, yeast. Yeast is the microorganism that then ferments the beer. What does that mean? It means they take up the sugar that comes out of the malts and they turn it into alcohol, which you and I love, as well as carbon dioxide to give us that nice bubbly nature to it. All right, let's leave the grain room. So with the series of pipes underneath, we'll transfer over to our kettle, which is that vessel there with the smokestack. And in the kettle, we boil the wort. And it's very important to boil the wort for a variety of reasons. One is to make sure we clean that wort and kill all the contaminants in it. Number 2, this is where we also add the hops. Hops need to undergo a long boiling process in order to create that bittering substance that balances the sweetness in beer. And then finally, we also boil in order to sometimes caramelize that beer and to concentrate the beer. After we finish boiling, we're gonna transfer the wort over to this 3rd vessel that you see Brewer Dave standing by, that the steam is coming out of, and that's called the whirlpool. And in the whirlpool, it's gonna spin that wort around. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to clarify that beer. Here at Save the World, we do not filter our beers. We think that filtering removes flavor. So what we do is we use different mechanical methods to try to clarify the beer. And once we're done with that, we need to rapidly cool down the wort. So we're actually gonna run it through this device that's called a heat exchanger. And in the heat exchanger, we run very cold water in one direction and the hot wort in the other direction. So it actually allows a very efficient heat transfer from the wort to the water. And what comes out is cooler wort and hot water. Now, if we follow the wort, it's going to be transferred to one of these conical devices called the fermenters. And the fermenters is where we're going to have that action of fermentation. So we're introducing yeast as we're transferring the wort over, and in these fermenters over time, the yeast is going to start eating up those sugars and spewing out carbon dioxide and alcohol. And once we think that it's done with fermentation, we're going to transfer it to packaging. So we're going to come down this way. We package in 2 different formats here. One, bottles, and the other one, kegs. This is our bottling line here, which we call Behemoth. And so the way this bottling line works is we put empty bottles on here. They'll travel down the conveyor belt, get a label put on it, travel down the conveyor belt, get into the rinser, get flipped over where they get rinsed with sanitizing water, go on down the conveyor belt, where it'll go underneath these filler heads, and this is where they'll get filled with the beer, come on down the conveyor belt, and this is where they get capped. And then this is the outfeed table where our team will then take the bottles full of beer and put them in cases and then stack them on pallets, basically. Okay, so you're in our cold conditioning room. We called this our cold conditioning room because some of our beers actually come here and stay here for months before they're ready for release out for public consumption. You know, I want you to think of it like chili. When you make chili that first night, it tastes really good. But if you then have it several nights later, after it's been melding those flavors, it tastes even better. Same thing with beers, especially beers that have more complexity to them. And we make what we call lower alcohol, lower complexity everyday beers, and your more complex or higher alcohol celebration beers that are meant to be shared. So anyways, that's why a lot of our beers will come in here and they'll sit here to condition, mature, age, taste better and more refined for your consumption. So every good brewery that wants to make consistent, good quality beers needs to have a laboratory. That laboratory is essential for measuring parameters that you can check and repeat over and over again. So you see that we have a microscope because we actually will harvest and reuse our yeast. And we also have a pH meter, which measures acid balance, hydrometers, which will measure specific gravity, which is the concentration of sugar in the wort. So now that you've heard about how beer is made, let's go on into the tasting room and actually taste some beers. We've chosen some of our best beers for you to try. The first one that we're going to talk about is our Rex Service Grisette. A grisette is a farmhouse style ale. That means farmers traditionally would brew it. And there's a really great story behind a grisette because in the coal mining towns where this was brewed, women would bring these to the coal miners and they were poor, so they would wear gray dresses, and grisette means gray. So this is our beer that is in honor of women. This is our Agnes Day wit beer. A wit beer is a Belgian style wheat ale that is brewed traditionally with orange peel and coriander and usually a secret third ingredient, which I cannot tell you because it is a secret. So anyways, this beer is a lovely light yellow, golden to orange color. It has a lovely aroma of orange zest, and then it's maybe a lightly sweet finish with that hint of refreshing citrus component. This is our Luxmundy Patersbier or Pottersbier. That means father's beer in Flemish. The neat thing about this beer is this is what traditionally in the monasteries that the monks would brew and actually drink themselves in the monastery, because they do drink in the monasteries. So anyways, it's a lovely, beautiful blonde ale. It's lightly fruity, crisp, and dry. This beer is in fact our most award-winning beer. Luxmundy Patersbier won the gold at the Best Little Brew Fest in Texas. Then it won the silver at the Great American Beer Festival. And then it won the bronze medal at the World Beer Cup, which is like the Olympics of beer. Here at Save the World Brewing, we like brewing a lot of seasonals because we have great seasons in Texas and we like to celebrate the differences both in what you can see and what you can taste. So for example, we have the passion fruit saison in the spring and the peach saison in the summer, and our end of summer seasonal, this one in particular, is our Flamma Granatum or pomegranate flame. Pomegranate, you might wonder, what does that taste like? Well, pomegranate is actually a very nice subtle fruit that has a light, earthy, subtle aroma. One of our other favorite seasonals is our Jonah's Relief Imperial Pumpkin Ale. A lot of people might have some preconceived notions about pumpkin ales, but what I can tell you about ours is that it's very balanced. You will make out that light caramel malt base, that nice light pumpkin flavor, and that hint of spice that just makes you think of the fall. Please come and join us out in our tasting room. We're open to the public Mondays and Tuesdays, Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. And especially if you like trivia, come out on Thursday evenings. And in addition to coming out to our place, you can find all of these fabulous beers at Brass Hall, right in historic downtown Marble Falls. They're the coolest spot in Marble Falls.